Isang mapagpalang araw po mga kasining. Today, we are going to discuss the Gidubat Street Dance presentation, its identity and choreographic effects. My name is Mr. Oliver Garbin, your presenter. Culture is an integral part of the society as paraphrased by Tyler. It embodies the way of life of a particular group of people. As well, culture showcases the moral values, attitudes, and customs by the individual who shared it. Thus, culture plays a significant role in one's personal and collective identity. Dance is one of the many forms of cultural expressions. As Sputnik puts it, dance occupies an important place in the social structures of all human culture throughout the history. Dance, as Radcliffe Brown also stresses, are in fact cultural practices with symbolic aspect. For so long a time, dance is a varied form has become a cultural vehicle for young and adolescents to represent the social context in which they unfold. The role that accomplish entails identity constructions, identification, articulations, organization, process in young and adolescents. Moreover, dance has been used as a tool and as a media to express and manifest emotion through corporal movements since ancient times. Moreover, it has been a part of social interactions in everyday life of several ancient cultures, helping them build their own cultural identities. Gubat is a second-class municipality in the province of Sorsogon, which features cultural dance especially during the festival known as Ginubat Festival. The Festival of Towns portrays the origin of the Gubat, which is the legend compiled by Salvador G. Españo. Ginubat means raid or nilusob by Tagulipnan and the group of Prabrab who used to devour the people, particularly the newborn babies. It also portrays the different traditions and beliefs of Gubatnon. Never in the mind of the new generation ever known that somewhere in the remote mountains and area of Gubat, there are traditions, songs, and dance sleeping for decades, which seems to give way to the fast race of modernization. At this time of high technology, the Gubat culture should be awakened and catch up the needs of society. According to Aquino, all folk dance have historic origins and when intelligently selected and adapted by it provided a wholesome contribution to a certain educational activities. Considering that indeed Gubat is regarded as a street dance festival, I saw the need to further develop its dance in order to highlight its local identity and in order to come up with an innovative prospect to highlight the culture of Gubatnon. Furthermore, it can be observed that locally, there are no established street dance which really highlight the people's way of life. This possessed a threat because indeed, when dance that are supposed to be a cultural expressions are fused with modern dance steps only for aesthetic purposes, then such dance may lose its cultural identity. Eventually, street dance may not be able to project the community and the culture in which it exists. Hence, this study was conceptualized. I being part of the local group of educators mandated to bring to light the cultural identities. And I further believe that in the conduct of this study would create a deepened understanding of the street dance in the chosen context. Likewise, through the conduct of this study, the identity of Ginubat street dance may be highlighted and thus set an example to other communities or cities that also perform a street dance to look into the cultural value of such creative art form. This study determined the identity and choreographic effects of Ginubat street dance as a basis for the development of an educational resource materials. Specifically, it determined the identity of Ginubat along the storyline, which includes the character portrayal, cultural historical elements, the effects. The artistic notation in the portrayal of the legend of Ginubat dance presentation in terms of music, the dance steps and techniques, costumes and properties. Also, the assessment of evaluators on the artistic notation or notions in the portrayal of the legend of Ginubat dance presentations was identified in terms of music, dance steps and techniques, costumes and properties, and choreography. Meanwhile, recommendations may be provided by the evaluators in order to improve the dance presentations. And finally, an educational resource materials was developed based on the findings of the study. In order to fully understand the context of this present study, I considered various theories that allows me to conceptualize my own theory regarding on the study at hand. The selected theory has significant relationship to the context of the study. For instance, the Educational Act of 1982 highlights an act stresses the need for the teachers to inculcate cultural awareness among its students. On the other hand, Martha Graham's possessed that dance is embedded in the society and its functions in the society. Meanwhile, Kalik suggests that dance, like all forms of cultural expressions, reflect the society in which it exists. I, being the researcher, formulate my own theory, known as a dance as a mirror of culture and tradition based on the thinking of the previous writers that the street dancing presentation represent traditions and culture of local societies and enhance to reveal its identity. The conceptual paradigm show a system approach where input are treated through several processes which are used as a basis for the output. The input which are needed in the study are 1. Identity of Ginubat street dance in terms of storyline, character portrayal, cultural and historical elements, the effects, and number 2, propose artistic notions as to dance movement, steps, music, costumes, and properties. These data were acquired through analysis of identity and artistic notions, street dance presentation, evaluations, and preparation of educational materials. After which, the Gidumat Street Dance Educational Resource Guide was developed. Further, the feedback as part of the mechanism showed the effectiveness of the proposed material were analyzed and interpretation. The descriptive evaluative creative sorbing method was utilized in this study. The main source of the data of this study were 111 respondents from LGU, schools, and community in Gubat, Sorsogon. The researcher purposely identified the respondents to ensure the credibility of information and because of their direct or indirect involvement in the conduct of Ginubat Festival. The main instruments used in this study were survey questionnaires and an interview guide to elicit needed responses from the respondent. The questionnaire was consist of two parts. Part 1 was include the questions with regards to the identities of Ginubat street dance, specifically the storyline, character portrayal, cultural and historical element the effect. Meanwhile, Part 2 include the questions on the artistic notion, which as dance steps, music, costumes, and properties. A focus group discussion using the interview guide was utilized in order to further elicit responses. This study revealed the following findings. As to the identity, Ginubat's storyline is all about the villagers who used to be attacked by the monster Tagulipnan and Rabarab. It also means Niluksob. There were 9 scenes that affect the culture and the legend of the whole story, told in the dance and movement through the presentations. The main character is Rabarab, Tagulipnan, who is known to be a half-bird and half-human monster, Mardawan with his 3 allies, Aramag, Maragadaw, and Mararag, or dress on their role with Spear and Bolo. The culture of carrying the babies by the mothers and renewing their faith in the Supreme Being, they affect the values of kindness, friendliness, faithful, caring, lovable, bold, and hopeful were expressed in the dance, accompanied by music. The artistic notations of the Ginubat street dance presentation was presented based on its stage cultural presentation. Meanwhile, music notations were prepared to express different feelings as needed in the history. On the other hand, the dance movement and steps were made to be suited to the street dance presentation in which there are more running steps and pre-dance movement, especially for the male dancers. The movement was choreographed by the researcher including the floor arrangement to the effect the culture of Ginubat. The female dancer wore palda, with a cat of bamboo in her waist to add additional sounds. The color red dominated on the top of the male of the female. They use also the native product of Gubat, which is known to be a lubid na bunot, as their tapis and accessories in their neck. Further, native materials were used as the props such as lubid na bunot, cat bamboos for their costumes and spear, basket, bilao, and fishnets and props are usually sprayed by neon colors to add additional appearance. In the light of the findings, the study concludes the identity of Ginubat's festival is affected on the storyline, character portrayal, and cultural and historical elements. Meanwhile, artistic notations in the portrayal of the legends of Ginubat as street dance presentations are created and reinvented to enrichment in terms of dance movement, steps, music, and costumes. The Ginubat street dance presentation is satisfactory along the music, dance steps, techniques, costume properties, and choreography. Furthermore, the suggestions recommendations centers on the preservations and conservation and improvement of Ginubat street dance presentation as a cultural property of Gubat. Finally, teacher can prepare educational resource materials on a street dance. Based on the findings and conclusion, the following recommendations are hereby forwarded: that a full narrative story of Ginubat be made as a supplemental readings materials in the primary grades to inculcate appreciations of the legend. More teachers should be encouraged to be more creative and active in developing street dancers for presentations. The general presentation should be focused on the excellence in music, dance steps, techniques, costumes, properties, choreography should as well be improved. The educational resource materials guided be published and copies be distributed to all elementary, secondary, and tertiary school in Gubat as part of the MAPI lessons and for the students to learn the dance. Also, more research should be conducted along the legends of Ginubat for dissemination to elementary and secondary school. Research on the other aspects of the story of Ginubat be done through Ginubat in the form of contest. Also, revisiting of Ginubat street dance be rationalized and programmed every 2 years.